It was late October of 2023, back when my neighborhood had already lost most of its Halloween spirit. I'd lived in the same small rental house since 2016, tucked inside a quiet suburban block lined with maple trees and aging streetlights. When I first moved there, Halloween used to feel alive. Families filled the sidewalks, porches glowed orange, and kids sprinted door to door with pillowcases full of candy. But after the pandemic years, everything changed. Each October afterward felt emptier than the last. Decorations disappeared. Houses stayed dark. Parents stopped taking their kids out. By 2023, Halloween night felt more like an abandoned holiday than a celebration. That morning, I brewed coffee and stepped out onto my porch to enjoy the cold air and the orange leaves scattered across the yard. The second I opened the front door, though, I noticed two figures standing near the edge of my property beneath the trees. At first, I thought they were teenagers. Both wore expressionless white masks and dark hoodies, standing completely still beside the fence line. They were tall though, too tall to be middle school kids, and unusually thin. The moment they saw me, they exchanged a glance and quickly disappeared deeper between the trees bordering the road. It instantly gave me a bad feeling. Not because it was Halloween. Just because of how fast they left. It looked exactly like the reaction of people who'd been caught doing something they weren't supposed to be doing. Still, I convinced myself it was harmless. Probably just older kids trying to scare people early for fun. I sat outside anyway, drinking coffee while cold wind carried leaves across the driveway. Eventually I forgot about them entirely. The rest of the day felt normal. Around 4 in the afternoon, I dumped a small bowl of candy onto the coffee table mostly out of habit. Even though nobody trick-or-treated anymore, I still bought candy every year. It felt wrong not to. I spent the evening on the couch watching old horror movies with the curtains open so I could see if anyone walked by outside. No one ever did. By 7:30, the neighborhood looked dead. Dark houses. Empty sidewalks. No costumes. No laughter. Only the occasional car passing through the street. Around 8, 3 loud knocks suddenly hit the front door. The sound startled me enough that I nearly dropped the remote. I grabbed the candy bowl and walked over, expecting maybe a few late trick-or-treaters. When I opened the door, my stomach immediately tightened. It was the same 2 masked figures from that morning. Now that they were close, they looked even stranger. Both wore black gloves and dark clothing from head to toe. Their masks were blank and dirty looking, almost homemade. Neither carried candy bags. Neither spoke. They just stood there silently staring into the house. I forced an awkward smile and held out the bowl. "Want some candy?" Nothing. No movement. No response. Just silence. The longer they stood there, the more uncomfortable I felt. Finally, I stepped backward and shut the door. At first I laughed nervously to myself, trying to shake it off. Some weird prank. Some TikTok challenge maybe. Teenagers trying to freak people out on Halloween. After about a minute, I peeked back outside. They were gone. No footsteps. No voices. Nothing. That should have been the end of it. Instead, things got worse. I stayed downstairs until after midnight watching television. Eventually I turned everything off and headed upstairs to bed. By then, I hadn't thought about the masked strangers for hours. I fell asleep almost immediately. Then, bang! 3 heavy knocks echoed through the house. I woke instantly. Another knock rattled the front door downstairs. My chest tightened as I checked my phone. 2:11 a.m. I crept into the hallway and listened. Knock. 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 Slow. Deliberate. I moved quietly downstairs, every light in the house still off. The living room windows reflected darkness back at me as I approached the front entryway. Carefully, I leaned toward the peephole. One person stood outside. Only one. The same blank mask. The same black hoodie. He stood inches from the door knocking softly over and over again. But the second thing I noticed terrified me more. Where was the other one? I backed away from the door, trying to think clearly. That's when I heard a sound behind me. A faint creak. Like a door slowly opening somewhere inside the house. I turned toward the hallway. At the far end of it, near the kitchen entrance, stood a dark figure. Before I could even react, he sprinted toward me holding something metallic in his hand. A knife. I ran. I bolted upstairs so fast I nearly slipped. The footsteps thundered behind me while the masked man downstairs continued pounding on the front door like a distraction. I made it into my bedroom, slammed the door shut, and shoved my dresser against it while dialing 911 with shaking hands. Outside the room, I could hear muffled voices. Two men talking quietly back and forth. Then footsteps moved down the stairs. A moment later, the house went silent again. By the time police arrived, both intruders were gone. Officers searched the property and found signs that someone had forced open a small basement window earlier that night. They believed one of the masked men distracted me at the front door while the other entered through the back side of the house. But they never found out who they were. No fingerprints. No cameras. No vehicle. Nothing. The part that still bothers me most is how planned it felt. They'd been watching the house since morning. Watching me. Waiting until the neighborhood was completely silent. And every Halloween since then, I leave all the lights off and pretend nobody's home. Because sometimes late at night, when the wind hits the porch just right, I still think I hear knocking downstairs.